Hi everyone, good evening and welcome back to Open Your Eyes to the Universe. I'm Gabrielle Martin, your host for this evening. Open Your Eyes to the Universe is a series of contemporary talks and conversations, open-eyed meditations and interviews with people who inspire other people and uplift them by sharing their wisdom, their insights and their experiences to co-create a better world. And as we begin in the spirit of reconciliation, the Youniverse team acknowledges the traditional custodians of Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present and those emerging. And we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. And we also acknowledge and respect the wise elder within us all and the collective wisdom of all those listening and watching this evening. Now, last week, yes, just last week, we were in conversation with visiting spiritual teacher and spiritual leader and meditator of 60 plus years, Sadesh Diddy. We caught up with her during her tour of Australia and had the opportunity to quiz her on the topic wisdom in action, during which she elucidated on the laws of karma, that is sukarma, akarma, and vikarma. Now, look, it was a very deep and insightful conversation, and I encourage you to check it out. To gain an understanding of these metaphysical laws is really vital if you're interested in living a positive and good life. So Jan's going to put the link to that episode in the chat box for you. You can check it there. You can check it out there. And so here we are tonight on Youniverse, and we're now in the company of Ruth Liddle, and our conversation is about overcoming deep and difficult emotions. We will explore effective strategies to manage difficult emotions. You know, there's a lot of useful advice and information available these days to help us cope with some of those troublesome emotions and help us to regulate them. And yet still, most of us struggle with managing challenging emotions, and it's so easy to feel overwhelmed. A recent Google search that Ruth did about managing deep and difficult emotions generated around 186 million results in 0.48 seconds. That's phenomenal. Now, of course, choice is always a good thing, but that much choice can be simply bamboozling. Our guest speaker, Ruth, finds the spiritual perspective offered by the Brahma Kumaris on life's challenges helpful for dealing with the really deep, incomprehensible feelings. Knowledge of oneself as a soul that is immortal, carrying the impressions of past karmas from previous births, and the practice of soul consciousness have continued to be a source of comfort and strength for her during emotionally trying times. So tonight on Youniverse, we thought we'd take a deep dive into managing deep and difficult emotions from the spiritual perspective. What does karma and soul consciousness have to do with emotion, and more specifically, managing deep and difficult emotions? Our speaker, Ruth, let me tell you a little bit about her. She's from Inner Space Meditation and Personal Development Centre in Manchester in the United Kingdom. She's been a meditation student and a teacher of Raj Yoga meditation since 1995, and her background is in education. And she's been more than 20 years professional experience teaching in schools and universities in the United Kingdom, but also over in this part of the world, Singapore, Malaysia, and South Korea. As a volunteer with Living Values Education, Ruth led experiential trainings and seminars for parents, caregivers, and educators here in Australia, in Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam to promote the development of values-based learning communities. So she has a huge range of experiences. And she has a passion for the environment, and her particular interest is in building the capacity of women to thrive in the face of climate crisis and serve their families and communities as leaders of change. So Ruth, welcome to Youniverse. It's, I think, the early morning for you in Manchester. I hope you've had your breakfast. And it's early evening on the opposite side of the world, so down here in Australia. It's really lovely to have you with us, and a really warm welcome to Down Under.
Thank you, Gabrielle. That's lovely. And it's actually 9:05 in the morning, so it's a reasonable time.
It's good.
And yes,
Sometimes.
I've had breakfast.
Oh, good. Breakfast is great. Yeah. Well, we're just
Yeah.
approaching dinner time, so that awaits us at the closure of Youniverse, and that's absolutely great. It's great that the time zones are working. They don't always work so nicely, but yes, it's right on for this time round. And you've noted that the Brahma Kumari's philosophy incorporates several principles and practices that really can be helpful in managing difficult emotions. So as we begin our conversation this evening, or this morning, perhaps you could begin just by sharing some of these and explaining how this practice or this principle is useful. Would that be a good place to start?
Yes, why not? It's a massive topic, overcoming difficult emotions. And what I've appreciated about the Brahma Kumari's practice is it's so all-inclusive. So it doesn't matter what culture I come from, what my educational background is. There's something for everyone. It's almost, I found it like a buffet.
Wow.
And because I had lived and worked in different cultures, I was able to perhaps empathize with what would speak to those different cultures as much as one can. Empathize with the culture that you haven't grown up in. So I think what it is for me, what helped me, is first of all, some knowledge that I could look at from the eyes of my experience and see, yeah, I can imagine this would work for someone in Korea, someone in Vietnam, that person in Indonesia that had that question. So different faith traditions. So a core knowledge, and I'm not a theologian, I'm not a great reader and researcher actually, but from what I understand, at the core of all of the religions, there are pure values, selfless values. And so the knowledge was about that and how those values are in us all, and we can access them through meditation, which is another part of the Raj Yoga. So there's the philosophy, the teachings, and then a way to connect with and take power from that knowledge, to bring it from my head into my being, into my heart, and then into my actions. So I make that knowledge current, alive, transformative. So the knowledge, and then the power to bring that knowledge into practice, and then the philosophy of Raj Yoga meditation that the Brahma Kumaris teaches. Okay, let's see the change in you. Yeah, you're experiencing this internally. Let's see it. So, do my manners improve? Do my relationships improve? Am I able to manage the habits I have that bother other people and bother me? And then I can do service automatically because I'm shining and sharing something very deep and precious. And others sort of feel something and they think, and it can wake them up. So you don't have to say a word, actually. And with this, as well as all of this practice, is a companionship, a mentorship, coaching, guidance from a super soul or a supreme being, one that has no interest to change me, actually, but is just there to serve. And that's a model for me. So all of these helped me and they drew me in. And what I found was, as a result, I could start to see where the issues were and how I could start to manage some really tricky emotions.
And what are some of those emotions, Ruth, that are particularly tricky?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting that you read out you mentioned how many search results could be generated if you do a search on Google. It was 186 million in 0.48 seconds back on July 23rd. Yesterday, it was 304 million in 0.55 seconds. So the amount of information available is just exponentially increasing and too much for any one person to get their head around. So what I did was I used artificial intelligence to do the work for me, to come up with 8 emotions. And I'll just share them briefly for you, for those of you who want to take a screenshot or want to note them down. The screen will only be up momentarily. So these are the 8 emotions that many people find particularly difficult. Why? Probably as we read through them, you'll see they don't stand alone. They're entangled and intermingled and very, very deep. So these are the 8 yesterday that artificial intelligence came up with.
So for those who are listening and not looking.
Oh, yes, I'll read them now. Yes.
Yeah.
So number 1, and this was the order yesterday. The first was grief. So grief is associated with loss. And normally we associate it with loss of a person or something loved that we're attached to. But it's also can be grief for the loss of dreams. So it's very deep. And anger is a very tricky emotion because it's a secondary emotion. It is underpinned by other emotions. So number 1, grief. Number 2, anger. Number 3, I think probably everyone recognizes, jealousy. Number 4, shame. Now, shame is a result of prolonged guilt. And it's very deep in many people, especially women, where you feel not that you've done a bad thing, but that you are bad or inferior or less. So number 4 is shame. Number 5 is fear. And I see that underpinning all of them, actually. Number 6 is loneliness, that sense of separation, of isolation, of not belonging, of abandonment. 7 is regret. And 8 is despair. So for those of you not looking, I'll just read them again. Number 1, grief, and anger, jealousy, shame, fear, loneliness, regret, and despair. I'm going to switch while we're sharing to a couple of quotes. And I'll explain why as we go along. It's just that the screen is open now for those of you watching. When I start trying to find solutions to any difficulty I have in my life, I take inspiration from the wisdom of others. And so when I was a young person and I was trying to make sense of my experience, I would often go to books, poetry, and there would be phrases, stanzas of poems, something that spoke to me. It was as if I was being invited to explore, to be curious, to find the answer. And there was a deep knowing that there was an answer. So I'll just share these 2, which I find very meaningful. And the encouragement is not to believe this. It may not speak to you, either one of these, but look for things that speak to you, because my suggestion is there's a deep resonance with some truth that is a way forward. So the first one is a quote from John Muir, who was born in, I think, 1863. He was of Scottish American heritage, but it's so true today. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. So that is John Muir, and he was an ecologist and a social advocate. And this spoke to me very much in that when we come to thinking about emotions, we cannot deal with the emotion. We have to deal with something bigger and deeper and more embracing. And then the second one, very familiar quote, many of you will know it, Viktor Frankl. I don't know if anyone needs his introduction, but he survived a Nazi concentration camps because of how he kept his mind and the thoughts he kept in his mind. Now, this is a very beautiful quote for me. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that spoke to me as well. I'm going to stop the share now and speak a little bit about those things. So, I'm aware of the time, actually. Gabrielle, guide me.
No, it's fine. Please
Don't
keep.
stop there.
Please, yeah, no, please keep going. It's. I'm listening intently. I'll guide when I need to, but
okay.
I'd love you to
Okay.
move forward with what you were doing.
Sure. Okay. So, I'm speaking from my experience, something that works for me. And if we think about life as offering a buffet of opportunities, I'm using food as a metaphor here, because most people have experienced maybe going to a festival, a celebration, a wedding, or choosing to go to a buffet for a meal, and you've been offered a choice. And in the choosing, there are many options. And many of these emotions that I've mentioned, the grief, the anger, the belonging, the separation, they can all come up in that situation just from one thought or one response. Now, how I respond to that can allow me to enjoy or be dragged into a web of thinking on the basis of past thinking. So, for example, imagine on this buffet, there are all these delicious dishes. So I might want to eat them all simply because I don't want to miss out. Or I might, because of past experience, want to choose one or two items that I really like. Yeah. So my attitude towards the buffet is one thing. But then in watching other people and what they take, what's available, what's not, the chances I'm given, if I'm watching other people and not watching the thoughts I have about other people, I can be pulled into all of these emotions. Imagine I'm sitting there and there's this amazing cake, one plate, and I watch people go table by table and take, and I watch, and the cake is disappearing. Then there can be like, oh no, it's gone. And I don't enjoy anything else because I had that desire for cake. Yeah. So then my grief can kick in just from a simple thing like that, can feed a grief that's in me that's maybe already being contributed to by loss of a loved one, loss of a job, all of these things. So there's one more drop that can take me down unless I have a method to rise me up. So anger, yeah, I can be very angry that my table wasn't asked to go to the buffet first. I can be very angry that that person took 2 pieces when there was only a limited amount. I can generate all sorts of thoughts. Jealousy, this was one of the big emotions as well. I can be jealous. Yeah. And then as I'm sitting there having all these waste and negative thoughts, I can feel bad. It's like, here I am at a wedding, it's a happy occasion, and I'm generating all this energy. And it triggers the thoughts of the other bad things I've done and a sense of shame. I'm a bad person. I can't even come to a wedding and have a happy time. This is an extreme exaggeration just to see how entangled these things are. And the suggestion is not to tackle any one of them, because we would be there all our lives, just looking at one. So fear, loneliness, regret, despair, perhaps you could see how all of those could come from just a buffet, a happy occasion. So the suggestion is to find that space between the trigger, the stimulus, and the response, and manage that. If I manage that space so that any emotion coming into that space, I have got a tip or a technique or a tool to take the toxicity out of it, then the emotion's not a problem. It's just something I felt. It doesn't bother me. And Raj Yoga meditation has helped me with that. Because Raja Yoga meditation says, don't look at the stuff. Look at the light. What light? The light of the pure and highest being, and the light of the super soul or supreme soul, the source, God, whatever you want to label, that eternal source of goodness and pure energy. And by working in the light, with the light, I can see in that light what's needed now. I don't need to see why it all happened, how it built up. Yeah, I'll get a big general picture of that, but I don't need to go into the detail. I need to practice being above it. And that connection allows me to rise above all that mundane and wasteful thinking, that wasted energy. Just rise up into my light, the light of the pure, peaceful, powerful, loving, naturally cheerful soul. And when I look at what's going on from that perspective, I can see things for what they are. It's just a scene in the drama of my life, in the story of my life. It's happened as a result of my past thinking, but now's a chance to be free of it. Now's a chance to think a different way, in a way that actually I'll feel very comfortable. I'll be happy at the end of the day that I gave it a go and I was partially or completely successful. And naturally, I'll be at peace with what I'm doing, even though I'm not perfect. I'll be at peace with the fact that it's a journey, and I'll draw on patience, I'll draw on tolerance, and these beautiful energies will displace the darkness. Yeah, so the light of the pure energies of soul will displace the emotions. And we all know that you just need to shine a light into a dark place for the darkness to go. So I'm wondering if I should stop now and maybe we have a little reflection on that.
I think that's a beautiful idea. I love the way that you've been, talking about this not going into the dark, but going into the light of the self. And so a meditation on that would be really timely. It'd be lovely if you could take us into that experience.
Okay. So the aim of the meditation is to connect with that pure, eternal light within me that perhaps is not so visible when there's a storm of emotion in my mind. And I think about the idea that there's a little spark of pure truth within me, a tiny spark of consciousness. And that spark of consciousness is not part of my physical body. When I look into the mirror, I don't see it. I see the face, I see the body, I see the posture, I may see an expression on the face, but none of those is this spark of the real me. So for that, I need to separate myself from the consciousness of the body, this most precious body. And I do that with a thought that I am a soul, a being of consciousness, a source of spiritual light. And I'm sitting in this body, like an actor wears a costume, or a driver drives a vehicle. I am using this body to express my thoughts and feelings, my creativity, to have relationship. And through this body, I take in messages from my outside world of bodies. And those messages come through my sense organs, my eyes, my ears, my sense of smell, touch, and taste. And I am the one who processes and experiences on a result of that input. Those impressions I store within my consciousness as memories. Sometimes I store them knowingly. Sometimes I unconsciously take in things. And perhaps this is where the emotions are fostered, nurtured, and become troublesome. Perhaps. I don't need to be able to answer that question even. I just sit lightly with it, that knowing there's a reason for everything. Everything happens as a consequence of a previous thought or word or action. It was in my script, in my story. But what happens to my story right now is my choice. And I choose to rise above my story, rise above any feelings I have about my story, about the physical world, about anything. I'm rising up above it all, into the light. It's like rising up above the clouds into a clear blue sky. I can see clearly up here. I am that being of light, experiencing freedom from the world down there. With that feeling of freedom, there comes a deep peace. My mind is not pulled or pushed by any thoughts other than I am a being of light. I am me. I am peace. I am everything I wish to be and everything I wish to see in our world. A tiny point of consciousness, radiant light. And in this consciousness, in this light, the dark shadows of emotions and past habits are barely visible. They don't come into my mind when my mind is full of light. The mind is happy to be absorbed in this light because I recognize that my mind is seeking peace. A peaceful mind doesn't think much. A peaceful mind is a quiet mind. And the mind is seeking the rich silence of the soul, the eternal being. This silence that holds everything. Not even a thought needs to move. When the mind is receiving all the beautiful energies that are missing in our ordinary world, our outside world. In this place of stillness of the mind, that silence, which is always there, can be felt. And the mind can absorb itself. The mind is satisfied because it feels loved. It feels there's no need to seek a sense of being understood or valued. Isn't seeking love or respect. And then that feeling of absolute security, of belonging. It's like I've come home to myself, and that home of light is everything I need. And my connection with that light, the light of the home, that connection is all I need to clear my mind of emotion and find that space I need between the stimulus or the trigger and my response. This silence, this experience, the memory I create by visiting this can act as a buffer to stop the reaction that comes from habit. It allows me to take a breath, see things clearly in an instant, know the possibilities, and choose the best one. In an instant, in this silence, I can know what I need to do. And then when I take my mind back into the world, there's a clarity and a confidence and a courage to try, even if I fail, to try and change my way of responding so I don't react anymore, or at least I react less. And I find that those moments of pure response from a place of love and peace and wisdom, they're so encouraging for me and others, so encouraging that I want to do more. I am a peaceful, powerful being of light, and I am able to manage any response, however tricky, however surprising. I'm able to manage my response with an ever-increasing contentment because I am becoming like that best self inside me that I want to be. And it's all a matter of focus on my thinking and being. As you bring your thoughts back into your body, if your eyes are closed, it's always good to open them and look around and get the sense of, I'm looking through my eyes. I was listening through my ears, I still am. a sense of that actor wearing a costume, like an astronaut would need a costume, or a deep sea diver, or a driver of a vehicle. The vehicle is great, but without the driver operating it, it's of limited use. And how does the driver drive? That matters. And we can create habits of becoming really expert drivers. And that brings pleasure for us and for our passengers and people who see us. So maybe if Gabrielle wants to come in here, or we can.
That's a really very beautiful meditation that you've took us on there, Ruth, and being able to really experience our own inner beauty and and of course that process of being able to bring it into action. You explained that beautifully in that meditation, so thank you. There's something that's coming through here around, I guess it's around the masks that we use and play with, but basically I think it's true for probably just about everyone in the world presently, that we grow up and we experience to some degree, as part of our growing up, we experience disappointment or trauma, the hard stuff, not just simple disappointment, but, actually experience a lot of trauma and the hard things in life. And we felt the pain of this. And I'm picking that this would be true for most people, if not all people. And as a result of that pain, we armored up, we put on masks, and we found ways to cope with that pain. And a lot of those coping strategies, it's well known now, keep us from being seen and being known, being seen by ourselves and being seen by others, and being known to ourselves and known by others. And so there's this relationship divide. And it also, it keeps us from living an emotionally balanced and fulfilled life. And so I'm kind of checking in with you around, how do you remove this armor or these masks in a safe way so that we can be the people we want to be? And what role does meditation play? And how does meditation work that it enables these masks to be removed? Or what spiritual information enables these masks to be removed? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I very much identify with the idea of creating coping mechanisms or masks to cope, because I definitely did that, and pretty successfully. What I found, I can only speak from my experience, what I've found from my experiences, I could read, I could listen to other people's experiences, but I had to be ready for myself to let down the mask and to have courage and give it a go. We can distract ourselves in many ways, especially if we're privileged to have money and freedom in relationships. We can spend a lot of our lives believing we're happy, and even wearing a happy mask. And if we keep busy enough, we don't listen to that little inner voice, the little neglected voice that's saying, but what about me? And so sometimes we have to go through that until the voice becomes too loud. And so people may be listening thinking, yes, I need to do this, I need to do this. And I would like to just say at this point, yes, it might be true, but not to rush into something just because it's someone else's good idea. I think, from my experience, if I do that, then what happens is I go in, I follow someone's suggestions, but I'm not doing it from my heart. I haven't taken it in deeply enough to sustain it. And so then I'll drop my mask for a while, and then another one will come up, or it'll come up again. because I haven't succeeded. I don't know if that makes sense, but in terms of lowering the masks, I have a little spiral that I'd like to share in a moment, which is a process that I come back to. Now, I think that this is a spiral idea that's come from Raj Yoga meditation, but I can't be sure that someone else didn't think about it before. But it's something to revisit. And this allows me to see what masks I may be hiding behind. But for this, I need a regular, gentle source of information that I process, take in, and practice or experiment with. And this is one of the subjects of Raj Yoga, this knowledge. And people who are pulled to this knowledge find that every day there's so much benefit in starting with some truth. And I would say, whatever tradition anyone finds or speaks to their heart, find some truth, something that everyone would accept from that tradition, and churn on it, turn it over in the mind, and make buttermilk into butter. Because then we own it, and that's very important. So I'll just share the screen one more time, just to share this. Here are our quotes again, and then I'll go on to the next one. So just to remind you of Viktor Frankl, this idea between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So this next image, hang on, there we go. This is a source of great stress for me, making PowerPoint slides. I become very emotional, but I'm getting better because I'm learning. So I've got a number of C's that I've drawn out from the knowledge of Raj Yoga meditation that help me to be confident to take down the mask. So the first one is courage. I have to want to change. And I have to want to change for myself. I have to be ready. I mean, some people say, oh, my wife wants me to give up smoking. That's all very well. And a person may be able to give up smoking because their wife wants them to, but unless they really want to, it might be tricky to sustain it without feeling a bit of resentment, a bit of other emotion. So this, I'm ready to change. And I remember reading years ago how someone was writing about getting ready to make a change to your exercise pattern for your life. Not just a January, join a gym, and this is my New Year's intention. And this person said, don't start for 6 months. Get yourself ready. So get yourself ready in the mind, get all the physical things you need, prepare the message you're going to give yourself. If you wake up and say, oh, it's raining, I can't go for a run. So answer all this, prepare to answer all questions and meet all scenarios, then you'll be ready. And there's something in that. I have to be ready. I have to do it for myself. I have to do it out of love for myself. Otherwise, the compulsion takes a little bit of the powerful energy away. So there's courage, first C. Curiosity. Anyone in life who learns and grows needs curiosity. Think of the school classroom, the nursery school classroom. All these things to stimulate curiosity, experimentation, and developing that scientific approach to life. What's the issue? What are the options? What's the best thing to do? So curiosity is needed. And so what am I interested in? You know, what fascinates me? What do I think is going to help? What signal did the universe give to me? What did I hear that's helped me resonate with the deep truth? There will be things. A spiritual seeker will see these things and perceive them. So courage, curiosity. It could be that the curiosity leads to courage. This is not linear. Connection. Now, this is the yoga, the connection, the meditation, connection with that part of me that is eternal, that is so pure, a reservoir of positivity and a source of good wishes and pure feelings when I connect with it, because I am a being of love and benevolence in that energy. So if I access my inner peace, that quiet mind that can touch the silence, then I can connect with the power that lies within, the strengths, the virtues, the wisdom. So connection with my highest self, my best self, or connection with the super soul, the supreme soul, whatever, the source. And in religion, you'll find people who are taking strength from their religion, who are transforming as a result of the knowledge of their religion. They connect through meditation or prayer or something. So connection to a higher source of energy, higher than the mundane world. Next, creative change. So this is change that I instigate within my mind. Yeah, the mind is immensely creative. It could be we're conditioned not to think and have our own thoughts or value them. In many Asian cultures, that's the education system. It's like, learn this, be able to reproduce this, and you'll get a good score. But even within a system like that, I can be creative. So creative change. Where there's creativity, the energy rises. There's happiness, there's joy, lovely energies. So I want to raise my vibrational level, my energy. So replacing the old patterns of thinking, knowing that I can't just throw those out. What I have to do is work on new ways of thinking and then wean myself off the old ways of thinking. So my energy goes to one thing, the old or the new. So I make that choice in that space between the stimulus and the response. I choose to change. And the more the connection, the more I'll feel the power of that. And one day I'll find that my mind defaults to the new and the old will just disappear unless I feed it again. And this is what we tend to do with emotions. We keep feeding them. We keep reliving scenes that trigger us, playing the video until the end and getting something out of that in terms of an emotional response. But when I realize so limited what I get there, I can shift from that to this. And it's a conscious choice. There's the clarity that comes from rising above the mundane, and I look with that new awareness. I'm a soul living a human experience. And other people are too. And the human experience is full of emotion. We're all actors wearing masks. We're all doing our best, even though it doesn't seem that way sometimes. But I observe with the clarity of what's really going on. I know that something's led up to this moment, but my choice now will decide how the future pans out. Company is good. I need to surround myself with positive energy. And this is why many of us connect with this supreme beings, soul, God, because our experience and concept is just a point source of absolutely pure experience of the highest qualities. And so if I keep that sort of company and awareness, it helps. It gives me courage. And so it's just a quiet remembrance, really. So different ways for that to play out. I can often pan out like a director of a movie, watching the movie on the screen. And it's like I'm watching the movie in the company of that light, and that light can guide or mentor. So like when I was a student and a trainee teacher, then my tutor would come in and watch me and then comment and guide. So I do that from time to time during the day and see how I'm doing. I take a break from the stage and come into the light and do that. And if I feel that light of goodness is with me, I find that's very helpful. I find it's not as helpful to be with negative people, people who are happy talking about the dark things, who are down there. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't help me. It just drags me back into my old habits of thinking. So even when I'm with people and we work with them, they're in our family, even when I'm with them, I surround myself with that energy. So I'm there, but there's that buffer of protection of light. And this is a creation of the mind. So that's something to play around with. And meditation is a great way to explore that. And at the end is confidence. I could take off my mask when I'm confident. Someone I know here, a young person, an adolescent, had some sort of, I guess, a hormonal imbalance, female body, but grew a mustache and beard. Now, this is very confusing. And that, for ages, I didn't know why she covered her face with hair. And then I did. Her mum told me. Now, when investigations had been made and she had the hairs physically removed, wow, no mask, no hair, just a beautiful face. And what a personality. Because she'd had to endure so much, you can imagine, at school, where you can't hide behind your face, behind your hair. That confidence, that glow, and she was empowering her friends as well, because she was beyond her thinking, I am my face, I am my body form. She was her. And that's the sort of confidence. And she had physically, kept the company of people who were not bothered how you look or how you appear. So this confidence can come, last click. And with that confidence, there's trust in my goodness, so I don't have to hide it. I don't have to put a pretend mask on, because I'm not that. I can be me. And even if I'm not brilliant, it's okay. Nobody's perfect. Where did that idea that I should be perfect come from? Is anyone perfect? I can have these conversations with myself. So this is a change that maybe answers the question, Gabrielle. It's probably taken a little longer than you anticipated.
No, it's absolutely perfect what you're saying. In fact, I've been making a few notes here, Ruth. It's a wonderful way to actually explain it and visually as well. But I liked what you're saying, that it's non-linear when we're engaging with these 7 C's, if you like: courage and curiosity connection, connectivity, clarity, company, and confidence. I think I'm going to remember those, and hopefully Jan can put them in the chat for our listeners as well. There's a lot to say about managing challenging emotions, and you've put it all in the positive, which is a different way that it's often presented to us around managing challenging emotions. So, it's often considered that you've got to go into them and really deeply, and perhaps for some people that is true. That is what needs to happen. You're suggesting quite a different approach, which is to shine the light on your light rather than on the dark. And we know that wherever we put our energy, that's what grows. That's the point of power is in what we focus on. A couple of questions have come through, and one is that I'd love to pitch to you, if that's okay. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's someone saying that in terms of developmental timelines, the unraveling of past pains and so on usually happens from our 30s onwards to our 60s, and it's not so much a crisis but an unraveling. How is it connected to a spiritual awakening?
Yeah, I'm hoping I've understood the question. Is it a gentle unfolding or gentle opening up, this unraveling, do you think?
I think that's what's saying. It's for something that was written in, so I can't check it out any further than that.
The spiritual awakening, that aha moment, it comes, and maybe it comes many times, and it comes and goes, or I answer the call or not. But what I find is, or what I've found, and I am still finding, is there are so many layers. And so we start working at what presents on the surface, and then other things come to the surface. So, for example, as a young person, there's a lot of anger and resentment, a lot of hurt playing out. And I've understood anger more and more. My anger, other people's anger, why I'm triggered by other people's anger, because I have that in me. But anger is so subtle. And so we're going to different levels. And it's almost as if we take the analogy of the iceberg, we've got the bit we can see, but then under the 89% that's not visible, there's all sorts. Or a tapestry that looks very fine on the surface, but behind is all the cross threads and knots and all sorts can be there. So as I become older, I find I'm more confident because of my life experience to be at peace with things. And on a spiritual path, that fast tracks. And so when there is a thread, I can follow it. I can choose to follow it if I wish, to get to the bottom of it. Or I can just be at peace with the way things are unfolding. But I do believe that life will bring to me what I need. Now, if I'm pulling at threads, wanting to move fast, then those things will come faster. If I'm wanting to just be at peace and live a slow and calm and charitable life in terms of giving good energy, giving time, giving respect, that will also work. I'm not sure if that's answered the question.
And we won't know, but I think it's a really good answer.
Okay. Sometimes I have to say this, because I think there will be other people on this call. There are a few people, if you do these personality tests, there are a few people that when they are asked something, their mind goes into 108 different possibilities all at the same time. And then you just don't know really what you're supposed to be answering. I'm one of those people. So you have to come in if I'm going off on a tangent.
No, I'm really appreciating your comments. So I think it's great. Let's just keep going. It's very refreshing. And it's a very refreshing approach that you're outlining to us, Ruth, and I personally appreciate that. So, but here's another question: is there a difference between emotion and feelings?
I would say yes. I would say I've read a lot about it, but what I'm working with at the moment, and this may not be the answer of all answers, what I'm working with at the moment is emotions are very superficial when they're triggered very much through my senses. So, for example, if suddenly the internet breaks, I'll go into a panic. And from that panic, an old habit of thinking, it's my fault, I've done something wrong, will come. Okay, so that's an emotional response. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. Sure. Whereas these emotions can go deep because these threads are very tangled, and it's not as simple as it seems. In Raj Yoga philosophy, we think about the soul being eternal, but having a number of different costumes and experiences over time. So it's very tangled. But a feeling is something deep. It's like deep in the ocean, whereas emotions are on the surface. And it might feel like the emotions are equally deep to the feelings. But the feeling that I am a soul, the feeling that I am peace, that I am love, I am purity, I am power, that's a feeling. Because it's something that permeates my being and deeply impacts my vibration. This is what I would say. An emotion is like a stab. You know, it's a reaction.
Yeah.
And happiness can be. But a feeling is something you sit with, you hold, and it changes your awareness.
That's a lovely response, very clear. Thanks, Ruth. So I'm going to ask a question on the basis of that. So this is from me. What are our original feelings? If they're much deeper, what's the original feelings that we have that we're going to dive into? You gave the analogy of the ocean, diving in, going deeper. So what are those original feelings if the emotions are on the surface?
Yeah, I would say on the basis of my Raj Yoga study and how I've processed and internalized it, one of the deepest, most eternal feelings is of freedom, of liberation from pressure and pull, that I'm a free being. And I get the sense that the Supreme Being is like this. Why? Because the Supreme Being is not pulled and pushed into action. You and I are, because we're in bodies. And when you're wearing a costume, you're wearing a costume to do a job. Yeah. And we're wearing a costume because we want to meet, we want to have this conversation. Whereas the Supreme Being is always separate, yet entirely connected. So for me, the ultimate is freedom. Now, to get that freedom, or to experience that freedom while I'm sitting here, I, the soul in the body of Ruth, to get that feeling of freedom, I have to feed the original energies of the soul, which are love. If I feed my love, so that not I love Gabrielle, or I love this, I love that. There's no object to this love. It's just like I'm the sun and I'm just radiating the warmth and light of love in all directions. No conditions, no preferences. You, the soul, whether you're my child or my neighbor, my feelings are equal. And it's that is spiritual love. It's this agape, this divine, unconditional, limitless love. So that's one thing. And that frees us from attachment. And attachment is a huge source of emotion. If I think something's mine, or I am better than you, or I'm less than you, then woo, I think we can write the whole emotion book from that. But love then frees me from being stuck or pulled or pushed. And then peace, just at peace, like on the surface of the ocean, it's okay. It's okay. I rebalance like a ship, a wave comes and I find my balance. It's okay. This is life. This is what happens. And I'm using my ability to navigate and stay peaceful so that others who come to me, they feel peaceful. They don't want to talk. They don't want to gossip. They're just happy just to quietly be. That's nice. So love and peace are big ones. And then there's within that, a freedom, this bliss. Bliss is like super sensuous joy, and it doesn't depend on anything external. It's just self-generated joy and happiness of being. And that's, again, I have to be free to experience that. And by going into that experience, I can free myself from the limited pulls. I want to feel happy, so I'll go and do something or be with someone that boosts my happiness. That's great, but it's a support. And I'm not free, I'm not independent. So love and peace, and then this bliss, and then purity. This is a very, very lovely energy that's not so recognized in the world, but people who've worked with children, very young children, or people who have been parents or caregivers of very young children, they've probably observed the children up to the age of 2, 3. They don't know danger. They will just give because they like to. They'll be happy with someone, whether that's a dodgy personality or not. They don't know. It's a purity that doesn't have any sense of fear of manipulation or anything that gets complicated later on. So that sort of pure energy is these are the energies within me that help me create that sense of freedom, liberation, I would suggest.
I like that. I like that a lot, Ruth. It's so emotions are on the surface, and they're the big 8 that you talked about: shame. I can't remember them all. Anger. What were they? Shame, anger.
I'll have to read them because they're not in my memory either. Grief,
fear,
anger, jealousy, shame, fear, loneliness, regret, and despair.
Yeah, and there's probably a few more, but that was what the chat.
That was the 8.
The 8 that were created in the Google system. And there may be more than that too, but they're the emotions, and they're on the surface in a sense that when you dive below those emotions, you come to those original feelings, the feeling of that you explained so well. So the feeling of freedom, and you talked about them as energies: freedom, purity, love, peace, bliss, and that connecting with those and connecting with those over time, you change the way that you respond in situations, so that becoming independent, I guess, emotionally independent. There's a question that's come in that I'd like to pitch to you, if I may. I think you need a lot of willpower and determination to manage emotions. How can I develop and strengthen my willpower and determination when I don't always feel that powerful?
It's a really good question, and one I can relate to very much, because there are times in my life where I felt I have got to do this, but then the darker side of me has overwhelmed me. I'll give you a very classic example. I feel a bit ashamed about it, but it just shows how deep our conditioning is, and how deep these energies of neediness and want and desire are. Comes from a farming family, and I was driving in a remote place between two places, and came across a herd of cows, dairy cows. And you just have to wait while the farmer's there on his tractor, and the dog's there, and the cows are plodding along. I love them. I love cows.
Yeah.
But I sat there and I thought, never mind, lovely, enjoy. And I was a meditator at that time. And so I wasn't a meat eater at that time. I decided to be vegetarian, and I was having dairy products and things. Now, I watched these cows, probably 5 minutes, massive herd. It wasn't just one or two cows that this farmer was milking. And he comes by with his tractor and his dog, and I'm about to start moving, and then there's 3 cows. Now, Gabrielle, they were crippled and hobbling at the back.
Oh.
And I thought, why? This is not right. Ruth, don't buy into this anymore. Just don't drink milk again. And that was fine. And it lasted for a while. And then, because I was in the UK and not in Asia, the cheddar cheese, it got the better of me, my greed. And I'm ashamed to say I started eating, even though I knew, I still did it. And so I think we have to, well, I have to, I shouldn't say we, I think I have to be aware that there will be moments like this where I feel it's too much. But again, I'm in that place between the stimulus or the trigger and the response. What do I want to do? Because this is a pivotal moment in my life. I either keep going, even though it's hard, I get back up and get going, or I don't, and both are fine. But I need to put my full positive energy behind whatever I choose to do. And then I'll lift myself up, and maybe later I'll be able to do it again. But the key is to developing willpower is to sit with the self and say, well, these are my choices. What do I want? And then make the decision and stick with it and put full energy into whatever it is. Get the happiness out of it. Be at peace with you've made a decision, you're sticking with it. Now, whether it is in inverted commas the right decision or wrong, doesn't matter. I am honoring myself, I'm honoring my decision, I'm giving it a go. And I'll find that if I do that, then if I tackle a bigger thing, I've got the habit of tackling it, and I have the success, the confidence from having done it before. So that spiral idea will apply my mind. And
thank you, Ruth. And I'd like to pitch a last question to you if I can. It's coming and it's saying, could you request that Ruth speak about how to go about overcoming the feelings of loneliness while living alone and not having people to meet often? Yeah.
That is a big one.
Yeah. It's a very real question, isn't it? I think it's pertinent to many. So, yeah, how do you go out with that one, Ruth?
Yeah. For me, I haven't felt that for a long time. I did go through a massive period of sorrow through abandonment. There was certain things in my life. I think what works is looking, maybe journaling if you like writing, looking at the benefits of being alone and the trade-offs. Yeah. So looking at it objectively, not from a place of sorrow. I'm alone, I'm feeling isolated, I'm feeling unloved or uncared for, I'm feeling abandoned. It's like Okay, what are the advantages, the good things about being alone? Okay, what's my experience now? What am I feeling? Yeah, what are my emotions that are around that? Okay, so these are the advantages. Can I shift from feeling like I'm a victim to, yeah, this is a choice? And possibly you'll see that in the feelings that you've listed, that are your current emotions or feelings, you'll see that there's a spiritual energy that you could add to lessen that. So, for example, if the loneliness is coming because I feel no one loves me, then maybe I can do some meditations where I become a source of love. And then I send that love to, in my case, Ruth. Yeah. Or I send love to the world. Because this soul conscious awareness and this connection with the big family of souls and doing something to help, to benefit, is immensely nourishing and connecting. The connection with the Supreme may or may not be an easy thing, but why not take this feeling of being lonely and on my own as an opportunity to research? Let me do a bit of reading around this. I understand that a huge number of people in the world believe in God in some way, shape, or form. So, is there anything out there that will help me feel connected and less lonely? Let me do some research. Let's be a bit curious about this. Experiment. So, if I make my current situation a research project, then I'm using my mind in a creative way. I'm helping myself and I'm generating the energy of enthusiasm. I'm using this time alone in a worthwhile and productive way. And so I won't feel as bad about being on my own because I'm feeling good about something else. Does that make sense?
Makes very good sense. Thank you, Ruth. It's lovely. A very practical response too. So thank you for that. Before we close out, it would be lovely to have a meditation with you, Ruth, if we could. You've spoken a lot about the divine, and you've referred to that one as a super soul and a supreme soul, and God, and allowed us to use whatever name we wish. And I certainly sense you have a connection with that one, and have used it in a way, to that relationship, to manage emotions. And so to have a meditation on linking with the divine and managing emotions, drawing that energy, would be a lovely way to close out. Is that okay?
Yes. And may I just, before we go into the meditation, share a very inspiring poem?
Please do. Please do.
Yeah, many people know Mevlana, Rumi.
Yes.
And this is a verse, the second verse of a poem by Rumi that is absolutely, I think, wonderful. And I think this is the place where we can meet that divine energy. Perhaps it's a good place to start. So I'll read it and then we'll go into our meditation.
Thank you.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. As those words sink in, or float over the surface of the mind. I'm reminded that there's so much wisdom in the world. There are so many chances to connect with a source of truth or deep wisdom that speaks to the heart. And in my meditation, I can go into a space beyond the thoughts and decisions of the world, to the light, where I experience the lightness of my being and a connection with the light of truth. I take a deep breath, and as I release it, it's as if my body, my physical body, dissolves. It's made of light, energy. And I'm aware of myself sitting in this body, a being of spiritual energy. It's as if I rise above the mundane, free from the pulls and pushes, the influences of the world. I'm free. I occupy my mind with visualizing myself as a point of light. Tiny point, but radiant and beautiful, full of beauty. A spark of consciousness that's peaceful, full of peace. A spark of purest consciousness, with no needs or desires, because it is full. I am full of all the energies that I seek in the outside world of my body. In this place of light, I feel comfortable, free, and the mind slows right down. And I'm able to appreciate the silence between the thoughts, the richness, and a state of contentment fills my being. All is well in my world. And in this very subtle awareness, this consciousness of the soul, there's a subtle feeling of company, of not being alone or isolated, being one of many souls in human bodies, yes, but a closeness to that one, the one that my heart has searched for in the human world. A tiny spark of absolutely pure, benevolent consciousness with more than enough love and purity and peace and bliss, wisdom to give to every soul on the planet, all at the same time. The super soul, the supreme soul, whatever I want to label that eternal point of light. I feel the connection And the love is of that of a parent so proud of the child, so accepting, because there's no judgment. I'm perfect the way I am. I feel the energy of a teacher, showing me, guiding me, suggesting methods, and then leaving it for me to decide. The perfect teacher is happy with my choices. This sense of companionship and guidance is light. It's light. It's just a thought away. And when I come inside and experience my light, the connection is automatic if I choose. The light is always waiting, and if I'm not ready, no problem. Because that light is love, and love never forces or demands. Love gives freedom and is always there. I take a deep breath, and it's as if I inhale this love, this peace, and it stays with me subtly, an energy that I carry into my day, into my life. And this memory helps me move to deeper understanding and higher levels of consciousness. One more deep breath and move a little bit and feel that eternal connection with bodies, with matter, and with the drama of life. Thank you.
Well, Ruth, thank you. It was another beautiful meditation, a second meditation, and could really feel your relationship with the divine and the way that you could share it so easily with us. So thank you for doing that. And it's been a real pleasure listening to your personal sharing, a pleasure as well as very enriching and empowering. And you've shared some valuable gems, very much appreciated. Some of the key messaging that I'm recalling is I loved those 7 C's, the courage, the curiosity, the connection, the creativity, clarity, company, and confidence. And I'm going to remember those. They're wonderful. But also this way that you made that distinction between emotion, the things on the top, but the heavy emotions that we're needing to manage. And you shared very eloquently and generously your personal experiences of that. But much deeper than that are those original feelings of purity and peace, love, bliss, freedom. So it's been a very rich conversation, and I thank you for that, as I'm sure our viewers and listeners do as well. So, Ruth, our blessings and our love to you for your selfless spiritual contribution to our world, to us this evening, but of course to our world. So thank you, Ruth. Thanks for joining us on Youniverse.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's a real privilege. And thank you for what you're doing. It's a real inspiration.
That's lovely too. Well, we'll close out now, and it's an opportunity for our viewers to become aware of some of the things that you can get online. You might like to browse our online bookshop, Eternity Inc., which has a full range of online books on self-empowerment and inner powers. And you'll also pick up there a few gems on managing difficult emotions. They're always at not-for-profit prices, so that's a big blessing too. Makes it very affordable for all. If you would like to subscribe to Open Your Eyes to the Universe and receive monthly updates, then please email us at special.events@au.brahmakumaris.org. And finally, our next episode of Open Your Eyes to the Universe is on Saturday, the 28th of October at 6 p.m. And that's AEDT. So it'll be daylight saving time then here in New South Wales. And yes, be ready to switch over to daylight saving. And as we close out tonight, we'll be playing The Deep from the album titled Bliss by Lucinda Drayton. So until we see you again online on the 28th of October, take care, walk lightly on this earth, manage your deep emotions by dipping into your original feelings. So with love and blessings, Om Shanti.